Yeah, so increasing your tweet engagement levels. So when you want to promote your work, maybe an opinion piece, or send out a statement, or even send out an original tweet, as opposed to just sending out a tweet on your own thread, on your own frontline page, you should probably aim for engaging in discussion threads that are already covering the topics that you're interested in. Because when you have maybe 100, 500, 1,000 followers, as though as maybe 1,000 followers may seem a lot more than 500, it's still not that much compared to what many other people, are dealing with on there. So when you're on Twitter and you're following a lot of popular people, people who have less followers, their content doesn't get put on your timeline. So replying to tweet threads that might be discussing relevant research, or replying to an opinion piece with a controversial opinion or something like that, will actually boost your chances of getting seen, of getting likes, of getting retweets, and then your engagement levels go up, which is really good for the Twitter algorithm. And you're more likely to get automatically selected when people search up a hashtag or something, or a subject piece that might be of interest to them, and your follower count will probably go up. So if you find Twitter threads or accounts that might be, saying, we're discussing this particular subject, be it politics, be it science, be it agriculture, whatever it may be, replying in that thread is better than just sending out a blank tweet to your own timeline. Yeah, so next slide, please. So now comes the subject of when people tag each other in their tweets. So it's very popular that, you might be, just like we do with the ANH team, we say we've got an event going on and it's being hosted at this time, and then we put everybody's handles in there, be it institution handles or private account handles. When you don't have a significant follower count, Twitter will do this thing where it will not show people's mentions. And a mention is when you have been mentioned in someone else's tweet. And if you're mentioning someone that's got 30,000 followers and it's someone, and you've got maybe 500, that doesn't show up in people's notifications. So the best way to get someone's attention is to actually quote tweet their tweet, because that actually gets marked in the statistics and people actually will see that, be it on their own timeline or on the subject timeline surrounding a popular tweet or a popular person. And it's basically a way of tagging someone by having their original tweet and then having your input above. So as soon as someone searches, like for example, yesterday, if you're really interested in what Raj Patel was saying, if you quote tweet him, when someone searches Raj Patel, they will see your quote tweet. So that actually boosts your engagement levels with that person, but also increases your audience share, because suddenly you get a whole share of an audience interested in the person that you've quote tweeted. So that's the best way of approaching tagging and engagement with individuals that maybe are not directly messaging you right at this moment. Next slide, please. So are you trying to reach out to a larger audience, like most people are, and you've reached this roadblock of you're following a bunch of people, they don't really follow you back because they're quite popular, or they don't really know that you've followed them because they get a bunch of follows, or they're not really that engaged in that kind of stuff? Well, the best way to increase your engagement rate and actually have a higher statistical ranking with Twitter that actually boosts your account is to follow everybody back that follows you, like really quickly, but also to follow back smaller accounts. A lot of people on Twitter take part in these follow back parties. And what happens is, for example, on a Saturday, someone that's got a fairly popular account will say, let's do a follow back party. And everyone in the comments, hey, I'm interested in this kind of stuff. And you follow each other. And it's a sort of like, I follow you, you follow me type thing. And that will boost your follower account maybe from 400 to 800 to maybe 1,000, to then maybe give you a little bit more engagement rate where people might find your tweets if you followed the previous steps and actually just be like, I like this person, I'm gonna follow them and retweet them and so on. And so it's really important to do that kind of stuff, especially when you're like in a niche area, because a lot of people that work in science, agriculture and stuff, it's a little bit difficult to sometimes get traction on a huge platform like Twitter or even Instagram or other platforms like that. So you know, if you're going to tweet out or you're going to engage in these kind of follow back parties, taking part in giving out lists of people that you think are worthwhile following might get you some return followers who go, oh cool, they like them, so I'm going to probably like them as well because they like similar kind of stuff to me. So that sort of like puts you in a bubble that people are like, okay, I know what this person's into, so I'm going to follow them. Next slide, please.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Thomas. That was a really comprehensive overview of some great strategies to really engage more on Twitter and different things you can do other than the more like traditional, I guess, tweeting and tagging people. And it's definitely some great examples of thinking creatively also about how to use the platform and how to connect with people and almost like push them and force them to pay attention to you. Now we're going to do a few quick notes on how to craft one great tweet. And this will look different for everyone in different contexts, but here are some tips that I have for how to make your tweets effective, engaging, and colorful, exciting. So number one, there's a reason Twitter's character limit is 280. It can be frustrating and annoying, but it's also a really effective way to get people to condense what is important to them, for example, from a research paper or something like that, into a short amount of text. Even if you can't condense everything, the point is to draw people in. So I definitely say with tweets, you don't need to use up all 280 characters. Short and to the point is best. And if you write a big block of text in your tweet and it's just like a bunch of lines, people are going to have trouble reading that. So also, while you're keeping things short, I would also say to break up the text into separate paragraphs so you give people a bit of like breathing room between the points that you want to make or the kind of sentences you want to include. And it helps people draw people's eyes to the specific paragraphs. Also, one note in terms of the shortness of tweets is that URLs and hyperlinks take up 23 characters in a tweet, no matter how long they are. So you'll want to factor that in when you write a tweet. Another big thing that I enjoy and I think makes tweets really effective is emojis. No need to overdo them because too many can be a bit overwhelming, but there are some really great emojis in the big Twitter catalog that you can explore and definitely use them strategically. You can use them as bullet points. You can use them to communicate something visually that you want to get across. There are some great tweeters in the ANH community who use emojis almost instead of text because there are a lot of food, nutrition, agriculture related emojis that you can use. A few other points I would definitely say to avoid acronyms and jargon. A lot of people on Twitter aren't going to Twitter to read a research paper. They're going to learn about something new, something interesting, something they probably don't know that much about. So I'd avoid any terms or acronyms that people might not know immediately. One tip for acronyms is if an acronym you want to use is for an organization or a project, you might want to tag their account if they have one instead of just putting the acronym. And then for abbreviations, I definitely recommend using them. They make your tweet more accessible and help with the character count. Some great ones, I use the ampersand as and instead all the time. B/C instead of because, W/ instead of with, that kind of thing. And it also makes your tweets more accessible and less kind of like formal and serious. Hashtags are another big point that I spend a lot of time thinking about, because they're a bit scary. I mean, how do you decide which hashtags to use? How do you figure out if you even should use hashtags? And my kind of rule of thumb is that the point of using hashtags is to connect to a larger conversation happening on Twitter about a given topic. So I'd recommend doing just a little bit of Twitter research before using a hashtag. Search for a hashtag you'd like to use maybe and see what the conversation is happening on Twitter about, or search for some people or accounts that you want to connect with and see what hashtags they're using. I'd say only to use a hashtag if it's either widely used already, like hashtag food systems, hashtag agriculture, hashtag ANH2021, and use those because you want to connect with other people who are using those hashtags. Or I would say if you have a campaign or a large event like our conference now, where you have lots of partners that you can collaborate with, I'd say that is a good situation if you'd like to create your own hashtag, but only do this if you have a coordinated campaign with other accounts who are definitely going to help you promote the hashtag. I've seen lots of people try to create their own hashtags that are either being used by a completely different community on social media or have a completely different meaning from what they intend. Especially in the nutrition space, there are lots of nutrition-related hashtags that aren't about research. They're about dieting or anything else like that. So I'd be careful about like trying to create your own hashtag without doing a bit of research. And yeah, if no one else is using it in the community you're interested in engaging with, then there's not really a conversation happening about it, and there's not much use in using it by yourself. Yes, leave that for Instagram. Philia also had a good point about emojis, where there are some emojis that have different meanings. So do a bit of Googling to just make sure the emojis you're using are safe for work. Back to hashtags. I'd also not overload with hashtags because they turn blue in the tweet, and that can kind of distract people a bit, and it's sometimes hard to read. Yes, different countries also have different meanings for emojis. Thanks, Thomas. Good point. Great. Okay. Tagging other accounts. Thomas already got into this quite a bit, but it's a great way to boost your engagement and draw people's attention. I'd say tags are better at this than hashtags. So if you're tagging other handles and you're doing a bunch of hashtags and you don't have enough room, definitely prioritize the handles that you include. Pro tip that maybe people already know is that if you use a graphic or photo in a tweet, you can also tag 10 additional handles in the photo, which helps with word count. And then last bit about images and graphics. I love to use graphics. I create my own on Canva and other platforms, and also use images, Creative Commons images. They're a really great way to draw people's attention, and I'd recommend for social media to use graphics that are bright, colorful, easy to read, because often people kind of cram their graphics with lots of text, but I'd recommend minimizing that. And also you can create GIFs or little videos, animations. Those can also be really effective. Last point is about crediting images. This is really important, and I'd say to always make sure the images you're using are okay to use by the creator and that you credit them. Great. Okay, on to you, Thomas. And I think we're going a bit over time, so if we can
Yeah, this will
Sorry
be
about that.
pretty quick. So profile creation tips. Next slide, please, Sylvia. We're going to cover a bunch of stuff that I think can be quite confusing to people when they create profiles, especially if they're not really used to using platforms like Twitter for like heavy engagement and so on. So the most important thing when you create a profile on Twitter really is to make sure that when someone sees your profile, first of all, they can find you. And second of all, they know who you are and what you do within like, 30 seconds of looking at your profile. The most important stuff is to really keep things concise, short and sweet. So you want to aim for a concise bio, which is that area of text there that you can see where it says fostering a global community, etc. So you want to aim for a concise bio that would describe both you and your profession well, so that people know what you're doing and who you are. You really want to make sure that you're going to be tagging relevant accounts here, because if you work for an institution, or if you have a specific connection to an institution like LSHTM or Tufts University or whatever it may be, if you have that handle there, then people are more likely to find you through their interests of that institution as well. You want to make sure that your personal handle is simple and easy to understand. Now, Twitter does this thing where when you create an account, it gives you a suggested handle. And usually it's like, TP197 and then a bunch of numbers that follow that. And what you want to do is you want to make your own handle that's like really easy to understand, like ANH_Academy or something like that. And that just means that when people are on Google searching for you, if you've written a paper, they just search your name and your Twitter account will come up at some point in the Google searches. Make sure that your profile pictures and that your banner pictures, which is that picture that you can see across the top, is up to date and relevant. You want something that people, you don't want a profile picture that people look at and go, this probably isn't a researcher or a scientist. You want something that's either a nice headshot of yourself or an artsy version of a picture of yourself, or just something that is really relevant to you. And your banner picture has got to be something cool, that really covers either your area of interest or something that you've done or something that you've been a part of. Try and use emojis in your bio. That can always, bring a bit of color and make things quite interesting for a bunch of people. And then the cool thing about Twitter profiles is that you can add a web link that is relevant to you, so your personal website or an institution website, and it'll always be there. So it won't be in the bio, it'll be right at the bottom. So that's something you want to keep in mind, because it's always useful. And then if you're okay with it, you can always put your location. It doesn't have to be a specific address, but if you want to say you're based in the States so that people know when to reach out to you if they're thinking about writing you an email or something, then they know. Yeah, so those are the top tips for really keeping a concise account and bio that really describes, I am this person, this is what I do, and if you're interested, please follow me. Yeah, so that's it. Next slide, Sylvia.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, great. So now the floor is yours. If you have any questions about our presentation, please let us know, or any comments, any tips that you have. We'd be really glad to chat about it. Yeah, Mosumi, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. This is great. One question, how do we connect with funders? I suppose Twitter is a much better platform to get our research on the table of the funders, if at all they have the time to see it. So not LinkedIn, not Facebook. So how do we do that? I mean, I may not have a very, very large scale study at times. It's not possible for one to have large scale studies. I mean, other than what our institution does. Okay, I mean, I'm talking of myself as an individual researcher. So if I want to showcase my work and probably get into the attention of the funders, how do I go about doing it? Other than the tips that you have already shared with us and what protocols they should follow, and also can you give one example of how different countries have different meanings for emojis? This is very interesting. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mosumi. Yeah, great points. On your bit about funders and getting the attention of partners as well, which is quite relevant too in our community. Twitter can be really helpful for that, but also frustrating because there are plenty of funders who don't really check their Twitter accounts. And like, you know, for example, the Gates Foundation, they're this huge organization. They have maybe one, two or three Twitter handles that have thousands and thousands of followers. If you tweet at them, if you tag them, they're not going to respond. They have a, I mean, I used to work with colleagues in my previous job who were in charge of the Gates Foundation Twitter accounts, and they did not, you know, they had no time to check all of the mentions. The Gates Foundation gets tagged in all sorts of different tweets about different topics, some relevant, some really irrelevant. So that can be really difficult. And I think what Thomas was talking about a bit before about research and researching people's profiles, that might be actually more useful as a strategy for engaging with funders to try to find the particular kind of like funding leads for specific issue areas at a foundation or a funder, a government agency, and find that specific person's Twitter handle. Because even if individual people like you or me don't really tweet that much, we still check our notifications, and we don't get as many notifications on our personal accounts. So if we get someone tweeting at us, we'll pay attention. And I'd assume that other individuals are similar if they don't have that so many followers. So engaging with individuals' accounts can be a lot more effective than with big organizations. I hope that helps a bit. Cool. Dalia, please go ahead.
Thanks. This is really helpful. So I had one clarification. I have one not question, which was funny. The reason I joined Twitter was because I made a presentation at an ANH Academy Week, and Rachel from DFID tried to tag me, and I didn't have a Twitter account. So it's the opposite problem with the funders. I was like, oh, darn. And then I set it up 5 minutes later. But I was sort of coached at the beginning to, one thing was to kind of keep, like, I don't have really personal, I have a Twitter account, but I only use it for work stuff. And it doesn't have to be directly related to my research, but I just don't, like, there's nothing personal on there. So that might be one thing. I didn't know what you guys thought of that. And then I was curious. So in terms of, like, I didn't know, you sort of said that you said use hashtags less often than handles. Handles is the @ sign, right? This is really dumb. Okay.
Yeah. No question is a dumb question.
No, there really are. They're really, anyway. Then how does that change? You sort of said this, but I wondered if you had any other information about the different, like how the algorithm of Twitter kind of treats handles and hashtags differently.
Yeah, sure. So when you engage with a hashtag, you're basically adding your tweet to a huge pool of tweets that everyone else is tweeting about a subject. So the best example is when you look at the trending page on Twitter, half of the trending page is going to be terms that are really popular at that time, like Euros 2021, you know, the football games. Or you've got hashtags that become popular. I don't really know what hashtags are popular right now on Twitter, but you get these, and when you click on them, you get a way where it's like top tweets and latest tweets. And that's just the pool of tweets that are all talking about certain things with the hashtag in their tweet. And the top ones are the ones that have the highest level of engagement, usually really popular ones or really popular people tweeting out about it. And then latest tweets is going to be people like maybe me tweeting about something who's maybe not getting more than 1 like on the tweet, and you refresh and it appears, and then if you refresh again, you know, all the other people tweeting about it, that's gone over there. And so the engagement rate for that is actually entirely reliant on how popular your hashtag is, and also if your tweet gets seen by many people, because if it's a really popular hashtag, it's just going to disappear unless someone popular retweets you. Whereas if you're tweeting out a handle, when someone's going to search up that person's handle, they're just going to see all their mentions that appear in order of when they were tweeted and also order of popularity. And you're way more likely to get spotted, because unless there's a huge scandal going on about like someone or something that you're tweeting about, your tweet is probably not going to disappear within 30 seconds like it is with a popular hashtag. So that tweet's probably going to stay there for a while. And I think one of the great benefits of using a handle is that if it's like someone that hasn't got 5 million followers and it's more like someone that's got, you know, 100,000 followers, you're going to get seen a lot more. So the Twitter algorithm kind of, I wouldn't say it favors, but it treats you differently whether you're using a handle or a hashtag. And I think if you're really trying to engage with people that are really interested in a particular person, the handle is probably better. But do chuck in hashtags in there if you think they're going to engage with other audiences. But really popular ones, again, will just, you're gone, you know, unless you get that stroke of luck and someone like Beyonce retweets you, you know, in which case everyone's going to see your tweet and is going to come and follow you.
Yes,
That's
definitely.
Great. Thank you.
I'm just sharing my screen to illustrate a bit of what Thomas is talking about. So like if you were curious about Amitav Ghosh in general and you searched for him on Twitter, in the top tweets section, you see some tweets that got a lot of attention about him in the past like week, because there's some from 26th of June, 28th of June, 30th. If you go to the latest bit, then it's like the actual latest tweets from an hour ago, 9 hours ago, whenever. So here you'll see more like, maybe this isn't the best example, but yeah, people with bigger followings who are talking about Amitav Ghosh, and also tweets that have been retweeted by Amitav Ghosh himself. Yeah, and then if you
also, I do want to say,
yeah.
Sorry, Sylvia.
Oh, go
ahead. I was going to say, I was just thinking very quickly, if you ever do tweet something out originally, be it a quote tweet or you have decided to tweet out an original tweet, because it is a situation where you haven't found something to quote tweet, you just think, I need to tweet something out that is original. That is really the time where all the advice we've given about picking between handles and hashtags is important, but don't cut back on hashtags unless you really need to get characters, because if you're really tweeting something out original, you want to get as much of an audience as possible. So that is like, if you're on your timeline and you press that little feather with the little plus sign next to it and you want to tweet something out brand new, that's when you like go ham on the ats and the hashtags, because you want to like get your audience. So if you're tweeting out a paper, a research paper or something, and you're like, I've just completed something in agriculture, instead of saying in agriculture, you go in hashtag agriculture, you know? I have done a report paper that has covered food systems, where you do hashtag food systems, and then, you know, working with partners and institutions, and then you put at Tufts University at the bottom. You really want to like make a salad of different things that are going to boost that engagement there when you're doing something original. But when you're replying or you're trying to reach out to someone in particular, go more for the handles than the hashtags. So that's like the differentiation of those two. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Yeah. Brilliant. Also, I saw, Talia, you asked a question about seeing threads as a whole where I can follow the conversation that you struggle with. So is this when, like, for example, the ANH Academy Twitter account tweets out like 5 tweets in a row and they're like in a thread. Is that what you mean by like struggling to follow the conversation, or is it something else?
Sometimes I actually don't totally know what my problem is. But I basically, like, sometimes there'll be a long conversation between people, like back and forth, and I just can't seem to like see what's first. Like, I can't read it somehow, and I don't know how to find it in order so that I can actually, like, someone says, oh, this person and this person were arguing about whatever, climate change or food systems on Twitter, and I can't seem to sort of access the whole thing. I can find pieces of the tweets, but I can piece it together, but I don't know why it's what's happening.
That actually happens for me once in a while. I'm trying to find an example, but I might not be able to. But often when you're participating in a thread, if people if 2 people reply to the same tweet separately, then that creates 2 separate threads.
Yeah.
And that's where it can get confusing, and then you have like different kind of,
And then they branch off really weirdly.
yeah, exactly. I'm trying to find an example from a few days ago.
So here's the thing. It's also not your fault most of the time, because some people don't know how to, there's like a Twitter etiquette that like some people don't really have when it comes to getting into long conversations. And so if someone sends out a tweet and I reply underneath, that person can then reply to me, and then they reply under me. And to see that reply, you have to click on my reply, and then you see the whole thread underneath. And then a lot of people, instead of then replying to their own tweet to add a second tweet to that thread, they reply to me again. So you end up having me with 2 branches of conversation that open up, and then you have no idea which one came first unless you look at the timestamp. So it can be really tricky. But if people have got the proper Twitter etiquette, then you find a tweet that is of relevance. Like if you know that you're following someone that's in an argument, you go on to tweets and replies under their account, you find one, you click on it, and then you scroll up to the original post, click on it, and you find that original tweet that either one of them made. And when you click on it, you'll have the whole thread that opens up below, and you can navigate and see how many replies are under each tweet. But I will admit, like, it's not just a you thing, it's an everybody thing. We all have these issues where like someone has suddenly like broken up a thread into 5 bits and it gets confusing as heck.
I think I've done that as well, because I just didn't understand.
Yeah, it's quite weird that you have to reply to yourself if you're sending out 2 tweets at once as a response. You have to like reply, and then that tweet opens up and you reply to yourself to do the continuation.
And if I'm replying to, like, so I reply to myself, somebody replies to then me and those 2 tweets, and then I reply again to that person. I don't reply to that person, I reply to myself again.
No, if someone replies to your 2 tweets that you've sent in that thread, you can then reply to them, and it'll just continue that thread below.
Okay, thank you.
Basically you reply to the last person that spoke, including yourself.
I think I found an example of this from a few days ago where Deanna posted and then Kim replied, and then there are 2 different, okay, so Deanna's post was the first one, Kim's post was the second one, and then here's the branch. We replied and said, yeah, Kim, please join us. And then Deanna replied at the same time to say, let's connect. And so there's 2 separate branches going off here. So if you just look at Deanna's post, you'll only see
the
this
little hint is the little 2 next to the reply bubble.
Exactly. And if you look at Kim's one from where the branch started, then you'll see this branch and you'll see this branch. See, there's no line here. It's quite esoteric, or maybe that's not the right word, but
no, that's great.
I hope that helps.
Thank you guys so much.
Of course. Any other questions? I think we probably have to head over to the plenary now, but please reach out if you have any more questions. Here, I will just put the ANH Academy email in the chat. If you have any more questions, just let us know. Thank you.